Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Dina, and I'm one of the team here at Elderwerks. Elderwerks is a non-for-profit 501c3 organization whose focus is on seniors. We provide complimentary services, and our professional team extends all of those services out to older adults, seniors, families, and professional by offering information, aging counseling, guidance on senior housing, care solutions, different services, and basically anything and everything that has to do with aging. One of our tiers is providing those educational opportunities for seniors, older adults, and consumers. And that's what you've tuned in for today. We have Chris, our Director of Education, who is also, I'm going to mess up every initial she has, but she is a dementia reality specialist. She is our director of dementia reality. She is an RN. She is a grandmother and has a lifetime of experience that she is going to share with you. Chris is presenting today on keeping your loved ones with dementia safe at home. You will see her screen. Please put any questions that you have in the chat, and Chris will answer those at the end. Just a friendly reminder, again, we are recording this, and you will be able to reach out and review this after this presentation is up. Chris, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you, Dina. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to keeping your loved ones with dementia safe at home. We know that routine and familiarity are really critical to the care of a person living with dementia, and experts say that making home modifications early on may help individuals ease into the environment, learn their way around, and grow accustomed to it over time. Enhancing safety and comfort could help them live longer at home. Whether a person with dementia will live at home through their illness, relocate to a smaller, more age-friendly residence, or a long-term care community, certain strategies, big and small, can offer more support, safety, and independence. So we're going to talk, it's my hope at the end of this program that you understand that some simple changes in your environment will help a person living with dementia settle safely without giving up comfort of their own home completely. Each slide will give you some ideas that may help. These are some ideas, but they're not all that would be available. Depending on your situation, you may choose to complete all of these, or you may use just a few of the ideas. As a post note, I have included the National Institute of Health checklist for a person living with dementia in your home. It will either come as an email after the program or in person for live presentations, and yours will come in the mail shortly. I know the person that sends out these flyers is down sick right now, so give it about a week before we send out this flyer. So it should come in about a week. So before we begin, in order to understand why we are suggesting some modification, it helps to have a basic understanding of dementia. I'm going to move this little box down here. So let's talk a little bit about dementia. We know that dementia is not a specific disease, but it's a term for a group of symptoms that can be caused by several disorders that affect the brain. As a matter of fact, dementia is now called a major neurocognitive disease because dementia has such a negative connotation that they actually have reclassified it as a major neurocognitive disease. But since everyone's familiar with the term dementia, that's how we refer to it. People with dementia have notably impaired cognition, functioning that interferes with normal activities and daily relationships. They can lose their ability to problem solve, maintain emotional control, personality, and behavior problems. And while memory loss is most common, it alone does not mean that a person has dementia. To be diagnosed, a person must have at least two deficits, two or more brain functions, such as loss of memory, language skills, sensory deficits, all of those without loss of consciousness. Alzheimer's disease is a form of dementia. People kind of interchange that word Alzheimer's disease for dementia, but Alzheimer's disease is a form of dementia that causes changes in the brain. We know that Alzheimer's disease and related dementias are irreversible. They are irreversible. If you have symptoms of dementia, and sometimes those can be caused by medical problems, or it can be caused by dehydration, it can be caused by infection. But if we treat those medical problems or that dehydration or that infection, and the signs of Alzheimer's go away, you never really had dementia. You had, something that caused you to behave particularly like that. So there's kind of the difference there. But Alzheimer's disease and other related dementias are irreversible. We know that it is chronic and persistent, that it has no cure. It's caused by damage to the brain. Depends on what kind of dementia you have. You may have heard of plaques and tangles. That's related to Alzheimer's disease. If you have Lewy body dementia, you'll have Lewy bodies plaques in your brain. So the damage is caused by the structural changes in the brain related to the type of dementia you have. The type of dementia and the symptoms also depend on what region of the brain is damaged, because each area, each lobe of our brain helps support something else in our body: language skills, memory skills, executive function. So it really depends on where that is in your brain. We also know that dementia is not a normal part of aging. And we know that some, like I just said, some dementias are caused by treatable conditions. And this is what we call our dementia umbrella. It shows you that Alzheimer's is the highest cause of dementia in our population, with Lewy body being second, vascular dementia being right next to it, and then frontal temporal and other dementias such as Parkinson's and Huntington's. One thing I want to talk about a little bit here is Reisberg theory of retrogenesis. Understanding this theory may help, it helped me tremendously when caring for seniors with dementia, but it may help you understand why you have to really change things in your home when you're caring for someone with dementia. It is a concept, retrogenesis is a concept developed by a neurologist in an Alzheimer's research. His name was Dr. Barry Reisberg. And the name retrogenesis really means literally back to birth. He concluded that Alzheimer's unravels the brain almost exactly in the reverse order as the brain develops from birth. A correlation between the stages of dementia and the stages of human development with dementia. In other words, once an adult, twice a child for an individual living with dementia, because they age backwards. Their cognitive abilities decline, essentially mirroring that of the stage of development. Now, the only reason we use this comparison is because it helps us understand where that person is, but we never, ever, ever use it to relate an adult with Alzheimer's disease to a child or treat them like a child. If we look at this age comparison between dementia and the developmental stages, we would see the comparison with the person living with middle stage dementia having the same behaviors and cognition of the developmental age of a toddler. Now think of all those safety concerns you may have when you were raising your children, or when you have your grandchildren over and they're toddlers. That's why safety is a primary concern when we are keeping them at home throughout the dementia process. It can be done, and people do it successfully every day, but keeping in mind this Reisberg theory of retrogenesis helps us understand that with this comparison goes some loss of cognition. So dementia can change home safety, just like we have changed with dementia. We have change in judgment. We have change in executive function, making decisions. We have change in our sense of time and place. We have change in our behavior. We have change in our physical ability with dementia. We have change in our senses. And we have change in orientation to time and place. So you will see those changes and the safety of your home. For example, in judgment, they'll forget how to use household appliances, leaving the stove on, leaving the refrigerator open, leaving food out of the refrigerator. Executive function, causing poor safety awareness and poor decision making, letting people in the house who shouldn't be there. Sense of time and place, getting lost on their own street. I happened to be in downtown Arlington the other day, and a lady came up to me and she was looking for something, and it was pretty clear that she was lost and she had dementia. So we had to navigate, just like I wouldn't say to a toddler, oh, go down the street, go down 2 blocks and make a right. I had to get up from where I was and walk her down the street and get her to the place that she was looking for. So, you know, at first you think, oh, I'll just give them directions. But then if you do that age comparison and you think, this person has dementia, they're able to walk, talk, and ask questions. So that might be like a 6 or a 7-year-old. Just at that point, I thought, I can't walk her down I can't let her walk down the street by herself and expect her to find it. Behavior, becoming easily confused, or they may be suspicious or fearful. They may also have trouble with balance. They may have trouble experiencing change in vision, their hearing. They may be more sensitive to temperatures or depth perception. And we will see changes in sleep patterns, such as, and also sundowning, which occurs usually about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, typically when, it's starting to get a little bit darker. So let's start about some modifications. First of all, we have to simplify and organize. When it comes to making a living space safer and easier to navigate for a person with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, simplifying and organizing is a good place to start. Over the years, things like mail, gifts that were never used, clothes and magazines, they tend to accumulate and fill up the home. So concentrating, processing information, and finding things at home becomes increasingly difficult for anyone living in a messy environment, and specifically for people living with dementia. So clutter can easily be disorienting, not to mention it becomes a safety hazard. So we need to think about kind of straightening up and getting rid of all that extra stuff that someone may have. And of course, you want to work with them with this. This is not, if you're keeping them in their home, it is not your home, you're helping them. So again, you have to give them choices too. If we look at the bathroom, while slips and hot water burns can happen in the bathroom, there are various adjustments that can help reduce the risks. Experts recommend adhesive strips in showers and bathtubs to prevent slips, replacing a step-over tub with a walk-in shower, or installing a bench. Instead of using a towel rack as a handle in the bathroom, grab bars give people living with dementia a sturdier and more visible option for something to hang on to in order to prevent a fall. And I will tell you, those grab bars that suction to the wall really don't do any good. They're going to fall with the grab bar in their hand. So if you're going to do that, install those grab bars. You want to do that in the tub and the shower. You want a grab bar in contrasting color to the wall so it's easier to see. As Alzheimer's disease and related forms of dementia may alter person's sense of touch, experts also recommend installing scald protection features on faucets, which detects if the water reaches unsafe temperatures and stops the flow of water automatically. Do not leave severely impaired people with Alzheimer's and dementia alone in a bathroom. Use a raised toilet seat with handrails or a grab bar beside the toilet. Use a foam rubber faucet cover, often used for small children in the tub, to prevent serious injury should the person with Alzheimer's fall. And you can find, because again, we're talking about retrogenesis in that comparison, some of this stuff you will find in the children's and babies department, such as Target. And so the foam rubber thing that goes over the handle is one of those things that you would find there. Use a plastic shower stool and a handheld showered head to make bathing easier. Use a shower tub and sink. Use a single faucet that mixes hot and cold water to avoid burns. And set the water heater at 120 degrees Fahrenheit to avoid scalding tap water. Remove cleaning products from under the sink or lock them away. You also want to make sure that you have a night light in that bathroom to light the way in case that person gets up, and as many people do, get up in the middle of the night. You also want to make sure that you remove small electrical appliances from the bathroom. So if they're in your home and you have a blow dryer or a curling iron, you want to make sure those are put away. You also want to make sure that you cover electrical outlets. And if you have a man that you're caring for and they use an electric razor, have them use a mirror outside the bathroom to avoid that water contact. So you don't want them shaving in the bathroom. Moving to the kitchen. Accidents are prone to happen in the kitchen. We know that people could sometimes leave the stove on for hours at a time, filling the house with smoke and igniting fires. And in fact, I've worked in communal living and continuing care retirement communities, and that is one of the biggest issues that we have with our older adults is leaving the stove on. Also putting things in their oven that don't belong there, like when they go to a restaurant and they get leftovers, because they may not have a lot of room on their countertop, they tend to put that disposable in the oven just to keep it there, and that can melt that and start a fire. So you really have to be careful with kitchens. Sometimes what we do in some of the kitchens is we would unplug the stove. You want to install child-proof door latches on storage cabinets. Again, you'll be able to find that in that children's section at a place like Target or Walmart. And drawers designed, make sure that you have drawers that have stops on them, that have your knives and things that are sharp in them. You want to make sure that prescription or non-prescription drugs are kept in the kitchen, but stored up high in a locked cabinet. If they're stored in the kitchen, if you're storing them in the bathroom, you want to make sure you can lock that bathroom cabinet, which oftentimes you can't, which is why many people put them in the kitchen up high where they can't reach in a cabinet that can be secured. You want to make sure that you remove throw rugs and foam pads from floors. Install safety knobs and automatic shut-off switches on the stoves, like I've talked about. Do not use or store flammable liquids in the kitchen. Lock them in the garage or in or outside outside storage unit. You also want to keep a night light in the kitchen to make sure that if they get up at night that they navigate. Remove or secure the family junk drawer. A person with Alzheimer's disease may eat small items such as matches, hardware, erasers, plastic, zip lines. So you want to make sure little zip ties, not zip lines, zip ties. You want to make sure that your junk drawer is secured as well. And it's always good to purge that at least once a year anyways. Remove artificial fruits and vegetables or fruit-shaped kitchen magnets, which might appear to be edible to a person who has dementia, and insert a drain trap in the kitchen sink to catch anything that may otherwise become lost or clog the plumbing. They will throw things in the sink again. Think of that retrogenesis. They're taller than a toddler, but their thinking process might be similar to it, and they won't know that something may need to go in the garbage instead of the kitchen sink. Consider disconnecting the garbage disposal because, again, people with Alzheimer's may place objects or even their own hands in or near the disposal and cause harm. In our bedrooms, we want to anticipate the reasons a person with Alzheimer's disease may get out of bed, such as hunger, thirst, going to the bathroom, or they may be restless or they're having pain. Try to meet those needs by offering food and fluids and scheduling ample toileting before they go to bed. You always want to make sure there's a night light in the room. You can use a monitoring device, such as they use for infants, to alert you to any sounds indicating a fall or another need for help. This is also an effective device for bathrooms to keep in the bathroom to make sure. I didn't mention this when you were in the bathroom. It's a good idea to take the lock off the bathroom door. I know for some of you that's not a comfortable thing to do, but you don't want them locked in the bathroom. What you can do is just put a hinge lock at the top of the door that only you can reach to lock that, but you really don't want to have them locked in the bathroom. Remove portable space heaters if you had any in the bedroom. If you use portable fans, be sure that objects cannot be placed in the blades. So the tower fans are a little bit better to use because the fan part is encased in that little tower. Be cautious when using electrical mattresses, electric blankets, electric sheets, and heating pads, all of which can cause burns and fires. So you want to make sure that you're not really using any of those for a person who has dementia. If a person with Alzheimer's disease is at risk for falling out of bed, place mats next to the bed as long as they do not create a risk for an accident. Sometimes what you'll see in nursing homes, in assisted living, someone who rolls out of bed frequently, you'll see that they put the bed down on the ground, and then next to the bed, they'll put a mat. And so if they roll onto the mat and not the hard floor. You do what you need to do to keep them safe without restraining them, because restraining them is illegal. If we move into our living room, you want to make sure that you clear all electrical cords from areas where people walk. Remove scatter rugs or throw rugs. Make sure that if you have any tears or, rips in your carpet or your wood floors uneven, that you get that repaired, as that's a tripping hazard. Place decals at eye level on sliding glass doors and picture windows or furniture with large glass panels to identify that it is a glass pane. Don't leave the person with Alzheimer's disease alone with an open fire in a fireplace, because again, they won't know that it's hot until they get way too close to it. You want to make sure that you keep matches and cigarette lighters out of reach, and they should be locked in a drawer. Keep the remote controls for the television, the DVD player, and the stereo system out of sight. I do have to tell you kind of a funny story. When I was working in a continuing care retirement community, we had a lady who kept telling us that her TV was going on and off, and she would get up and she would turn the TV back on, and then she would sit down and the TV would go off again. And it wasn't until we sent the repairman on that they realized that her TV control was on her chair and she was sitting on it, and that's why it was going off every time she sat down. So again, you want to make sure that those are in a secure place, and of course you want to give them some autonomy, but make sure that at the end of the day, where that controller is. You want to make sure that you're securing that large furniture. It's really important to have at least one chair that has armrests, and recliners are nice because you can recline someone and relax them in there. So having a recliner with armrests is kind of nice to have. But if you don't have a recliner, have a chair with at least armrests so someone can push up on that. If we're looking at oxygen and electrical cords, you want to make sure that they're really out of the walking path of people. Oxygen cords typically come clear, but you can ask for oxygen cords in different colors. You can get them in blues and oranges. And that way you can see where the oxygen cord is on the ground, so someone won't trip over it. If you're like me, you like to change the furniture around a little bit. That's not something you want to do when you have someone with dementia. You want to make sure that the layout of the furniture stays the same. That person will become familiar with it, and it reduces that tripping hazard. Lighting in any room should be consistent and even. Lighting above stairwells should be in good working order. Good lighting is really key day and night for a person living with dementia, because vision problems grow more common with aging, and because dementia can affect parts of the brain that interpret visual information. It often is intensified more than age-related vision. That also means that depth perception issues change. There may be a smaller visual field, diminished tolerance of glare, and difficulty distinguishing one object from another. So good lighting is essential. Adjusting the lighting in a person's living space may not only help them navigate their surroundings more easily, but it also will ease that person, their confusion, maybe their anxiety and their aggression. And like I said, try to keep the light at a similar level throughout the house. So you want it even and consistent from room to room. And that means no dark corners or dark hallways, uneven lighting patterns, or caused by bright lights and shadows can cause agitation and confusion. I'm thinking of a coat rack that was in a room, and when the lights went off and the night light went on, it had a reflection on the wall that confused that person into thinking that there was someone in their room because they saw a shape of a coat. So again, having consistent lighting and having things out of the way that cause reflections is kind of important. Even on a bright day, some spots in the house, like a closet, may require extra lights, and so you might need something a little bit more in those closets. So again, using drapes or shades on windows as or the slits from blinds may cause distortion and confusion. So you want to keep it as well lit as you can and pretty consistent. And again, using night lights in bedrooms and bathrooms is important too. So anything on the floor, especially in walkways, could lead to falls. Trip hazards aren't limited to just clutter. According to the CDC recommendation list, coiling or taping appliance and phone wires and extension cords to the baseboards and removing throw rugs or ensuring that they have non-skid backs can really significantly reduce the risk of falls. So keep walkers also readily available to assist with ambulating. Make sure those walkers are in good condition to use. Make sure that if you have wood floors, you're not using wax or polish on them. Make sure that when you're washing your floors, that you're keeping them away from the floor so they don't walk and slip and fall. Make sure that your basement and lower level areas should be safely locked or gated off. Stairwells should be equipped with railings on both sides, not on one side, but on both sides. And again, if you can get the door locked to your basement or your lower level, that's the best thing to do. In your laundry room, you want to keep the door to the laundry room locked if possible. You may want to put a sign on the door that says "Stop, do not enter," to prevent that person from going in there. Because you might have detergent liquids or the pods that look like candies. Again, if you have cabinets and you're keeping that, it should be kept in cabinets. And if you are, it should be locked up. And also keep them high if you can in that laundry room. Obviously, this laundry room is not a good example because it has lower cabinets, but keep those lower cabinets, and that drawer should be locked as well. And they recommend that you don't use pods because they can be mistaken for food or candy. Medications. Using a medication system and not dispensing a medication right out of a bottle will help you, as well as a person living with dementia, keep track to make sure that your pills are taken daily. I use a medication dispenser every day. It helps me keep track of my days that I'm taking my medicines, and it also helps me, stay on task for refilling them. But you want to make sure that you're using some kind of a medication system, even as something as simple as a little plastic dispenser like that. Even if you're using something like that, you need to keep it locked in a cabinet up high. And make sure that they can't get into it. Always use a pharmacy such as Walgreens or CVS that has a packaging dispensing method. I'm gonna correct myself on that and say you don't have to use one. They're very nice to use. They come in strips, and you tear off the strip every day. You have to be careful with those dispensing mechanisms, though, because sometimes they tear all the way open into the next day, and then you end up with spilled. The ones that are showing here are pretty much the most practical ones, and that's what most people use. And they have one that, if someone's taking 3 meds a day that they can use. I'm sure you've all seen those. When a medication is discontinued, this is really important. When a medication is discontinued, you need to make sure that you discontinue it and you do not keep it. I can't tell you how many homes I've been into where they've had drawers of medications, and it's hard to tell which ones are discontinued, which ones are old, and which ones they're taking. It can get very confusing, and it can cause a lot of harm to the older adult in general, let alone someone with dementia. So make sure that you're disposing of those medications. And each community should, if you contact your city hall, they should let you know who has a medication disposal program. Whenever you're using a new medication, you always should read the pamphlet. This is really for anybody, but for someone with dementia as well. If you're starting a new medication, read the pamphlet and then watch for signs of any side effects. You always want to, again, make sure that you stay with a person when they're taking their medication. Check their floors and their chairs for any loose pills. They may not have a good grasp like you do, and you put their pills in their hands, and then they put it to their mouth, and one of them may spill down in the chair on the floor. A lot of people don't like taking their medicine, so they may pocket it in their side of their mouth. So you want to look in the side of their mouth and make sure that their medication is that they've swallowed it. If you're looking at the outside of the house, place a latch or a deadbolt either above or below eye level on all doors. Remove locks on interior doors to prevent the person living with dementia from locking themselves in a room. Keep an extra set of keys hidden near the door for easy access. Mark the edges of steps with bright or reflective tape, and consider installing a ramp with handrails as an alternative to steps. Eliminate uneven surfaces on walkways, hoses, and other objects that may cause a person to trip. And again, you're going to remove any of those scatter rugs as you walk into a house, and use textured strips or non-skid wax on hardwood floors and tile floors to prevent slipping. I wouldn't use wax at all. Install locks out of sight, like I said, either above or below. I would put a no solicitor sign on your door. People with dementia tend to be kind of friendly. Sometimes they're paranoid, but oftentimes they're friendly too, and they'll open the door and answer the door and let people in. So if you put a no solicitation on the door, that's helpful. I would never leave a person with dementia outside by themselves in an unsecured area. If you have a backyard that's fenced in and there's nothing that they can trip on and they're sitting in a nice lawn chair for a few minutes, that you might feel safe about that. It depends on the circumstances, but you really want to make sure that you're with them most of the time. Again, always compare it to that Reesberg and think, gee, are they really in that middle stage dementia where they're, more of a 7 to a 10-year-old, and would you leave a 7-year-old outside on the front lawn by themselves? No, you wouldn't. So again, you have to think about that. You need to make sure that your lawn is not cluttered. And if you live in a house where you're not only having your family member with dementia, but you have kids at home too, it can be a little tricky because you're going to have bikes and garden tools and lawn games and things out there that a person living with dementia can trip over. So make sure again that you're just with them when you're outside. You want to make sure that there's repair of any broken pavement, and then place alarms on all doors and windows. And again, these are suggestions. You can do all of them, you can do none of them. These are some things that are to think about. And maybe they're not things that you have to think about right away, but they may be things that will come you will have to look at later on in the disease process if you do keep them at home. So let's talk a little bit about wandering. Wandering and pacing are very common behaviors that people with dementia experience. Our goal should be to allow them the ability to walk, but safely. However, if a person wanders away from home, that could be life-threatening. Electric monitor equipment with motion sensors are helpful. Alarms, though, can be frightening. And so, again, making sure that it's something that will work for you, maybe a home monitoring or GPS tracking system. My son just got for his 9-year-old son. It's the first summer that they're allowing him to ride his bike around. And I think it is by Apple, and it's called a Wizzo, I think, but you can look it up, and it's a watch. And he can text, he can call on it, he can call home by just pressing a button and say, Mom, I need help. But what it also does is it tracks him. And so my son and my daughter-in-law know that he made it to the park safely. They know that he made it out to his friend's house, 4 blocks over safely. So there's a lot of different GPS tracking systems out there. I know that one was under $100, and they bought it for him, I think, last summer because he was just starting to venture out as a 9-year-old. And now he's 10, but so it's worked really well for them. So you have to really think about how far they can go, and they can get pretty far. I know there was a incident where one of our members was driving into the city, and she saw an elderly man crossing Milwaukee Avenue. And he looked very confused. So she pulled over because she works with seniors. He looked confused. She pulled over and got him to the other side of the street. And he didn't have any identification on him. He knew his first name was Roger. That's all he remembered. He didn't know any family members' names. And so our member called 911, and the police came. And it's interesting because, and the police are now having to be schooled on dementia training as well. But they first asked the man what his name was again, and he said Roger, and he said, what's your last name? And he couldn't remember. And he said, you must remember your last name. Well, when you have dementia, that may be something that you lose. At any rate, they took him to the police station, and then the family realized that he was missing. He had come to visit his daughter, and she had left the back door unlocked, and he had gotten out to visit outside and wandered away. So they can get pretty far, and it can be pretty scary. So make sure that you're aware of the fact that they may wander. You don't have to wait 24 hours to report a senior. You can report them immediately, and that'll initiate a silver alert. So basement doors, again, should be locked high enough for a person not to reach them and remain locked until you need to enter. All cleaning products and toxic liquids should be locked in a cabinet in case they are in the basement or in a shed. Never leave a person with dementia alone in a shed or garage or a basement. If you have an attached garage, you may consider moving your automatic door pad higher so it's out of reach for a person who lives with dementia. And you never want to leave your keys to the car in the car. Just remember that any garbage, anything inside your garage or your shed can be potentially dangerous items such as tools, your tackle box, your saws, any sporting equipment. All of that should be locked away in cabinets or in appropriate boxes or cases. You want to make sure that you secure all motor vehicles and keep them out of sight if possible. Considering covering vehicles, including bicycles that are not frequently used, that might reduce the possibility that a person with Alzheimer's disease would be thinking about using it to leave. And again, keeping those toxic, things high up is really important. In emergencies, keep a list of emergency phone numbers and addresses for local police and fire departments, hospitals, and poison control helplines very close. I would put it on the refrigerator if you could. Make sure safety devices are in working orders, such as carbon monoxide detectors, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers. Make sure that they're inspected regularly and that they're working. Replace your batteries twice a year. You always want to do it during daylight savings time, at least, and then another 6 months from there when we're switching back. Learn about a 24-hour nationwide emergency and wandering response service through National Institute of Health, and keep a short medical history available, including the diagnosis and dementia for first responders. It's always helpful that when you're calling 911 for someone who has dementia, even though dementia may not be the primary reason you're calling them, that you let the responding personnel know that they have a neurocognitive issue like dementia, and that they tend to get anxious if this happens or that happens. That way the emergency responders can approach it a little bit differently, and they may use some different techniques to maybe help that person get up off the ground, or if they fell, or stop bleeding if they fell and cut themselves. So, and it's always important to remind them to let the people in the emergency room know, if they're going out to the emergency room, that they have dementia and where they are in their dementia. They're in early stage, they're in middle stage, they're in late stage, because knowing where they are in dementia, again, will help us as healthcare providers understand what they need and how we can meet their needs. Well, we don't want to keep any firearms and explosives in the house. We don't want to hide them. All guns should be removed and secured in locked gun cases with the key hidden away. We have to make sure that those are out of sight. people can accidentally harm themselves with anything such as explosives and firearms, and especially with 4th of July coming. Again, we want to make sure that all explosives are out of sight for people. Again, what would you do for a person who was in this different stages of development? Would you give them that stuff? Would you allow them would you put it on a table so it's accessible for them? You have to think that way. And again, we're not thinking that way so we can diminish the personhood of that adult and not treat them like an adult. We just want to keep them safe. So here's some tips that can help create a happy home for that person living with dementia. You don't want to argue with them. Never ever argue with a person living with dementia. If they're saying that they hear something or they see something that is their reality, you need to be in the moment with them and understand where they are coming from. You will only get them more agitated and more cause more anxiety if you argue with them. You want to make sure you hide the keys to the car because they think that they are going to be able to drive. I have an aunt who had a stroke, and she was pretty significantly impaired right after the stroke, and she knew that she couldn't drive. But now she's physically getting back to her baseline where she's able to walk and both of her hands are moving. Cognition, not so much. So she thinks she can drive now because she can move her arms and legs. And I said to my uncle, you have to make sure that she doesn't get those car keys. She doesn't understand. She doesn't have the cognition, the executive function, the decision-making to drive a car. There's more to driving a car than the mechanics of moving it forward, backwards, and parking it. You've got to be able to have some executive function and decision-making skills to do that. You want to limit napping, and the only reason I say that is because if you have someone who's having a hard time sleeping at night and all they're doing is sleeping during the day, they're not going to sleep at night. So kind of the rule of thumb is if they're going to nap, let them nap earlier during the day and not after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If they're going to nap, do it before 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because now you're getting into evening time and they may have difficulty getting to bed later on. So that's what I mean about limit napping. And that's on there twice. I'm sorry about that. You want to allow for independence. Every adult has a right to be autonomous, make their own decisions. What we're doing is helping keeping them safe. And that's our job. Our job is not to take away their decision making on everything. So, what do you want to eat? What's your favorite foods? What would you like to wear today? Would you like to go to the library with me? Those are questions that we can ask people that give them that ability to make some decisions, and so they have that feeling of independence. Music is a good soother. It's also a good conversation starter. I used music a lot when my mom had dementia, especially in the later stages when she was not able to communicate verbally. I knew what kind of music she liked because she was always singing a tune at home. And so I can remember one day, and you may have heard this from me if you've been with me before, she was really not talking at all. And I put on a song that she used to sing all the time, Sentimental Journey, and I put it on Apple Play, and she perked right up and she was singing every word with it. It was amazing. So music is a good connector. Older people in general, we all know, like routine. It makes us feel comfortable. It makes us feel secure. And that's the same with a person living with dementia. So setting a routine for them is helpful. It helps them feel comfortable in their surroundings. Make mealtime easy. Maybe if they're able to cut their own food, let them do as much as they can. But if they're unable to, maybe cutting their food ahead of time and setting it in front of them, then they won't struggle with it. Food that is easily, negotiable on a fork is helpful as you're getting towards the end of dementia, when you're having more difficulty with your, using a fork. Letting them use their fingers to pick up their food. You really have to pick your battles. Would you rather have them not eat, or would you rather have them use their fingers to eat? And again, going back to that Reesberg, think about where they may be in their dementia if they're using their fingers to eat. Maybe that's all that they have left, is that pincher position that they're using. And engage with them in something that you both enjoy, whether it's music or watching a funny movie. I suggest, sometimes a movie is too long to watch, but if you go on YouTube and you watch video clips, I would turn on I Love Lucy video clip of the candy, when they were doing the candy line. Or I would have I would put on Carol Burnett's show and watch one of their skits. Something that's humorous will get them engaged. But walk with them in their journey, because they need you by their side. So these are a lot of tips. And again, I will make sure you get that list from NIH. But again, make sure that it'll be about a week out. And I want to thank you for joining us today. And we'll see if there's any questions. I'll give it back to you, Dina.
Thanks, Chris. Amazing as always. Every time I take a nugget away that I didn't think of, and I had 3 grandparents that had forms of dementia and lived through their journey. So it's really awesome. I don't see any questions in the chat. If anybody wants to add one, that would be great. Chris, do you have any tips for taking somebody who is suffering with a neurocognitive disorder, dementia, out to a restaurant that would make their
yes, couple of things. I would probably not do it at the busiest time. I would do it probably, if you want to go for breakfast, I would do it late morning, or maybe a later lunch, but you don't want to put them right in the middle of that busy. You also want to make sure that they're in a chair that has 2 armrests. And you don't want to go to a place that had, like Cheesecake Factory, where it has pages and pages and pages and pages of food. I found that when I took my mom out to eat, what I would do is say, Mom, well, let's say we're eating breakfast. They have French toast, they have omelets, or they have a waffle. Which would you like? Or she would look at the menu. It was very interesting, because she would look at the menu, and you know how it is in those breakfast lunch restaurants. It's, again, pages. And she would look at that, and she would say, I'll have what you're having. So I started eating what I knew she wanted. But then I kind of changed the routine, and I said, well, they have a Denver omelet, and I know you like those. And then they have waffles, and you seem to enjoy those, and pancakes. Which would you like? So if you give them 2 or 3 choices, they tend to do better than having look at that whole menu.
That's great, Chris. Thank you.
Sure.
Still no comments in chat. So I'm going to go ahead and end this. Thank you, everyone,
Thanks,
for
everyone.
attending. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Chris or myself here at the center. And just a friendly reminder, August 14th at Stonegate, we are having our Aging Better Expo. It's our 10th one. If you'd like more information, just reach out to us here at the Elderwerks Center. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.